Christmas is off. Expect a call from my lawyer. That's the voicemail I got from my dad 2 days before Christmas. No warning, no explanation, just silence, then legal threats. I'm Claire Morgan, 33, and until that moment I thought I was the perfect daughter. The one who always showed up, paid the bills, co-signed the mortgage when they couldn't. I didn't argue. I didn't plead. I quietly removed my name from the loan. And what followed was a 48-hour storm of missed calls, emotional blackmail, and one truth I couldn't ignore anymore. Have you ever had to walk away from your own family just to survive? Tell me in the comments, because sometimes setting boundaries is the bravest thing we can do. I'm Claire Morgan, 33 years old, and until last Christmas, I believe my family was unbreakable. Then my phone lit up with a missed call from Dad home. A voicemail was waiting. Claire, it's Dad. Your mother and I have discussed it thoroughly. Christmas is canceled this year, at least for you. Your constant questioning of the family's finances has crossed the line. We are your parents, not your clients or your subordinates. If money is that important to you, expect to hear from our lawyer after the holidays. You've made your priorities clear. And sadly, this family is not among them. Don't call back. Your mother and I need time, away from your control. My hand dropped the ribbon I had just used to wrap Ethan's gift. I thought I'd misheard. I reopened the message, hit replay. The second time was worse. Dad's voice, Frank Morgan, was cold, like reading out a sentence. Gone was the man who used to lift me onto his shoulders to place the star on top of the Christmas tree. I sat frozen amid piles of red and green wrapping paper, surrounded by presents I had spent 3 weeks preparing. For my mother, Elaine Morgan, for my younger brother Tyler, and for his new girlfriend whom I hadn't even met yet. Everything collapsed in 30 seconds. When Ethan walked into the room, I still hadn't moved. I just handed him the phone. He listened to the voicemail once, his face shifting from confusion to fury, then falling silent. Claire? After everything you've done for them? Ethan whispered, gripping my ice-cold hands. They're suing you? I didn't answer. My mind was cycling through memories. Dad teaching me how to drive, Mom's radiant smile when I told her I got promoted, then the times I'd wired them money to pay property taxes, to fix the leaking roof, only to find out they'd gone on a Caribbean cruise weeks later. I closed my eyes. This wasn't a disagreement, not even an argument. This was a clean cut, a declaration of war. I'm not calling back, I said, my voice lower but steadier than I expected. I'm not begging. I'm not negotiating anymore. Then, what are you going to do? Ethan asked, still holding my hand. I unlocked my phone, typed a single word to my father. Understood. Sent. Then I stood up, walked straight into the home office, opened my laptop, and started typing into the search bar. Co-signer removal without consent, Oregon state law. A new chapter in my life, and maybe in my parents', had begun. Not with tears, but with action. I grew up in Mapleton, a southern suburb of Portland, where every lawn was trimmed like a magazine illustration and every family knew each other. Ours was the kind of family people called model. 2 kids, 1 boy, 1 girl, a 2-story blue-gray house with a white fence, and parents who showed up at every school, church, and community event. My father, Frank Morgan, was a well-known real estate agent with a smile as wide as the ocean and a handshake so warm everyone believed he meant it. My mother, Elaine, worked part-time at a local dental clinic and spent the rest of her time in the church's kitchen committee, the high school PTA, and tea parties with the neighbors. Tyler, my younger brother, was the kind of kid who lived in the shadow of his overachieving sister. I was always Frank's pride and joy. That's how he introduced me to anyone. She's a brilliant writer, valedictorian, got a full-ride scholarship to the University of Chicago. She's going to make something big of herself. I used to believe that was forever. When I graduated and began my career in marketing in Chicago, my parents threw a big celebration. My Claire is going to make it in the big city. Dad bragged to anyone who'd listen. Reality wasn't so glamorous. I shared a cramped apartment with 2 roommates, ate instant noodles more than anything green, and worked late hours for a modest starting salary. But I was proud. I was independent. I was building something of my own. Then came 2008. The market crashed. Real estate froze. My dad, who used to talk sales like he was hosting a game show, started looking tense, losing sleep and drinking coffee past midnight. At first, it was small calls. "Claire, Tyler needs books this semester. We're strapped." Or, "Your mom's car is acting up. Could you lend a few hundred?" I never said no. Not once. They had given me everything growing up. That was true. But by the time I was 26, I had moved closer to home, working for a fast-growing digital marketing firm, and started saving to buy my own place. Then one late night, my dad called, his voice choked. "Claire, we might lose the house. This house. The one you grew up in." I could hear my mother sobbing in the background. They had refinanced at the worst possible time, and rising interest rates had ballooned the loan. Without hesitation, I said, "Send me the paperwork, Dad." "Let me take a look." A week later, I was sitting with them in the loan office at Midstate Bank, signing on a $380,000 mortgage. The loan officer, a woman named Nicole Brooks, said that having me co-sign was just a formality to get the application approved. "Your parents will pay it all," she said. "You're just the backup." In the parking lot afterward, my mom hugged me tightly and whispered, "You saved our home, Claire. We owe you so much." That moment, I felt like a real adult. I kept going, building my career, buying my first apartment, and thinking everything had finally settled. But then, little signs started to show. When I couldn't attend a cousin's wedding due to a strategic planning meeting at work, my dad texted, "Guess you're too busy living your own life to remember where you came from." When I started dating Ethan, a kind, sincere high school history teacher, my mom asked again and again, "Are you sure? With your intelligence and potential, I just think you could do better." Tyler, who had dropped out of college and moved back in with my parents, always defended them no matter what. "That's just how they are. Don't make a big deal," he'd say whenever I raised concerns. I didn't realize I was being eroded bit by bit. No explosion, just tiny cuts. One day, my dad called, "Claire, I'm thinking of joining the golf club. After all these years working hard, I think I deserve it." A week later, my mom called, her tone casual. "Oh, and we're renovating the kitchen. Since you're on the mortgage too, we went ahead and used the home equity line. Just easier that way." I started feeling short of breath every time I saw a call from home flash on my screen. Every bonus cycle, every promotion I got came with a new emergency. I had lent them over $65,000 in 6 years, co-signed 3 credit cards not under my name, and was still the one shouldering the family home's debt. Strangely, every time I was happy, a vacation, a successful project launch, a photo with Ethan, was exactly when they reminded me of everything they had sacrificed. I started to understand. I was no longer the daughter they were proud of. I was their interest-free retirement plan, and I had stayed silent for far too long. That year, Christmas came early for me, not because we put up the tree on Thanksgiving as usual, but because, for the first time, I was hosting the entire family in my own home. After 3 years living with Ethan, we had just moved into a charming craftsman house in West Haven, only a 30-minute drive from Mapleton. Wooden loft, wide porch, yellow lights wrapped around the eaves. Everything looked like it had stepped out of a vintage postcard. I joked, "This year, I finally won't have to sleep on the sofa at Mom and Dad's." And I had planned every detail. A 9-foot Douglas fir in the living room, Christmas morning brunch featuring Elaine-style baked eggs, upgraded with truffle mushrooms, homemade gingerbread cookies, and handwritten tags on each stocking. Even Amber, Tyler's new girlfriend, whom I'd never met, had her own stocking. Ethan teased me about my color-coded shopping spreadsheet, but he still helped hang every ornament and assemble every slat of the new dining table where the whole family would gather. "This Christmas will be perfect," I whispered as we placed the angel on top of the tree. "A fresh start." Ethan squeezed my hand and smiled, but he said nothing. That silence, I now realize, was the first warning. 3 weeks before Christmas, I called my mom to confirm their arrival time. She answered casually, "Oh, we might be a little late. On Christmas morning, we have to stop by the travel agency to sign a contract." I froze slightly. "What trip, Mom?" "The Caribbean cruise, in February, 35 years of marriage. We deserve to celebrate, right?" I forced a smile, congratulated them, but something in me deflated. Just 2 months earlier, they had called asking to borrow a little money to cover Q4 property taxes, just a temporary cash flow issue. That night, I looked up the cruise line they mentioned. The basic package, $3,200 per person, not including airfare, excursions, or cocktails. The next morning, I drove to my parents' house, initially intending just to talk gently. As I walked in, a 65-inch smart TV was being mounted in the living room. Dad beamed. "It's ours, an early Christmas gift. This screen's going to be epic for basketball." In the kitchen, I saw bags from Saks, Bloomingdale's, Nordstrom, lined up. "Just a few things for the cruise," Mom said, flipping over a $480 price-tagged maxi dress. "A woman's got to look good. You understand?" I nodded, poured some water, then asked in the calmest voice I could muster, "The cruise sounds amazing, but I'm just a little confused. 2 months ago, you asked me for help with property taxes. Dad mentioned the roof was leaking. So now—" Mom waved it off, chuckling. "Oh, that was nothing. I may have exaggerated." Dad clapped my shoulder. "We figured things out. The cruise is a reward for tightening our belts." I looked at them, then at the TV, the dresses. That familiar tightening in my chest began again. "If you can buy all this," I said slowly, "then why do you still need my help with taxes, roof repairs, and why is my name still on the mortgage?" Dad stopped smiling. His tone went cold. "Are you tallying things up on us now?" I froze. "We raised you, put you through school, supported you. And now, just as we want to enjoy a bit of life, you're counting every dollar?" Mom interjected, her voice suddenly trembling. "I didn't know we had to ask your permission to buy dresses. You think we're children?" I tried to explain. I wasn't controlling. I was afraid. Afraid of being cast as the financier without the right to say no. But reasoning didn't matter. That night, I sat in my own living room, watching the Christmas lights blur through tears. Ethan held my hand quietly, then said what I had feared all along. "Claire, do you realize how many times this cycle has repeated? They say they're struggling, you help, then you find out they're spending like nothing's wrong. They're not going to stop." I didn't respond, but I knew he was right. 3 days later, Tyler called. "Mom's really upset about that last talk. The cruise is just something they treated themselves to. I think you should let it go." I tried to explain about financial responsibility, the right to ask questions. "Come on, you make good money. What's the big deal?" Tyler said. "It's Christmas. Why ruin the mood?" I hung up, hands trembling. But I didn't react. I took note. 2 days later, Dad called. "We've decided to recarpet the whole house, so it's nice and clean when everyone comes over for Christmas." I reminded him, "You and Mom are coming to my house the night of the 24th. Everything's ready." "Oh," Dad cut me off. "Your mom wants to wake up in her own bed. We'll just swing by for dinner." I felt something huge being taken away from me. All the effort, all the anticipation, suddenly felt misplaced. "Claire," Dad said, and this time his voice was completely foreign. "Seems you forgot one basic fact, who the parents are in this relationship. If you keep pushing about the mortgage or snooping into our finances, then be ready to face the consequences." I said nothing. That was December 23rd. Early the next morning, while wrapping Ethan's last present, I received the voicemail. That voicemail. The voicemail was still there, stiff, cold as stone. I listened to it 3 times within the hour, each time hoping to catch a crack, some trace of softness, a sign that maybe it was just a heat-of-the-moment outburst. But no, there was nothing but the dry, detached voice of Frank Morgan, the man who once lifted me onto his shoulders in the freezing cold when I was 6, so I could place the star atop the tree. Now he was casting me out of Christmas, with a threat from an invisible lawyer. Ethan sat beside me, silent, his hand gently gripping my wrist as if trying to anchor the storm of emotion breaking loose in my chest. "What are you going to do?" he asked. I didn't hesitate. "I'm removing my name from the mortgage. No warning, no bargaining, no chance for them to take back what they said." That afternoon, while Ethan was out buying the last of the Christmas gifts, I sat in front of my laptop searching on autopilot. Oregon cosigner removal process, residential mortgage. Most articles confirmed what I already knew. It wouldn't be easy. Typically, a cosigner can't be removed unless the primary borrower agrees, unless you can prove you no longer have an interest in the property and are at risk of harm. I carefully read through every clause. Then I emailed 3 financial advisors. Only one responded that same night. Samantha Lee, a consultant at an independent firm in Beaverton. "I can meet you at 9 a.m. tomorrow, and I think we need to act quickly." December 24th. While much of the world was rushing to wrap the last presents, I stepped into Samantha's office, small, tidy, decorated only with a mini plastic Christmas tree and a crooked financial calendar on the wall. Samantha, early 40s, black sweater, deep and sharp voice, listened as I laid everything out, from the day I signed at the bank to the chain of emergencies, always aligned with my bonuses, to the voicemail. She didn't interrupt, just nodded and took notes. "Claire," she said when I finished, "you didn't know, did you, that your parents opened 2 more home equity lines after you co-signed?" I froze. A total of $120,000. Nearly all the remaining value in the house has been withdrawn. The good news is, you're only legally bound to the original mortgage, not the additional loans. I tried to breathe. My hands tightened around my handbag straps. Samantha looked me straight in the eye. "They are exploiting your trust. And now they're threatening you because you dared to ask questions. We need a real estate and cosigner attorney. I know someone. I'll call right now." 10 minutes later, I had an appointment with Jason Kim, an attorney whose office was just 3 blocks away. And while cars lined up to buy gingerbread and holiday cards, I sat between 2 cups of cold coffee, listening to a plan for freedom take shape. Jason Kim, Korean-American, around 35, spoke fast and clear, entered the small conference room holding the files I'd emailed in advance. "Claire, I'll be direct. You're tied to a property you don't own, don't live in, and don't benefit from. Meanwhile, the primary borrowers are financially exploiting and threatening you. This could qualify as grounds for release. We'll file a petition to remove your name from the mortgage, citing evidence of no financial benefit, no residence in the property, harmful behavior toward the cosigner. I'm not promising speed, but your case is strong." I looked at him. "What if my parents object?" "Doesn't matter. The bank can make an independent decision if they see the cosigner as a risk to the loan or no longer a legitimate party." We signed the initial paperwork that very afternoon. My Christmas officially shifted from roast dinner to filing for financial separation. Jason submitted the documents directly to Nicole Brooks, the loan officer at Midstate Bank, and attached an urgent letter. "Due to direct threats via voicemail, we are requesting resolution within 72 hours, he wrote. When I left the attorney's office, it was dusk, rooftops glowing with lights, windows ablaze, children laughing in the streets, people carrying gift bags, holiday music drifting from the cafe nearby. As for me, I went straight home, pulled out my phone, and sent an email to myself titled, "Loan Transfers and Gifts. Master Record. I sat there the entire evening beside the tree no one would gather around, reviewing my bank statements, credit cards, and Venmo-Zelle transactions over the past 6 years. Each of their emergencies got a highlight. Each time I was dismissed after helping, annotated in an extra column. I didn't write in anger. I wrote in clarity. For the first time in years, I no longer felt guilty saying, "Enough." On the morning of December 25th, I woke up in a sunlit living room chilled by the winter light, where there was no sound of torn wrapping paper, no doorbell from my mother, and no raspy laugh from my dad upon seeing the Christmas tree. Ethan brought in 2 mugs of hot cocoa, said nothing, just placed his hand gently on my shoulder. "Christmas might be missing some people," he said, "but you're not missing clarity." I gave a faint smile. Not joy, just a quiet attempt to remind myself of something larger than emotion. I had done the right thing, even if it left me feeling alone. Last night, when I sent out the first compiled record, total $65,130 from 2017 to present, unpaid. I hadn't expected to feel this clear. No hatred, no guilt, just recognition. I had played the bank daughter role for too long without realizing it. Each money transfer was an unconscious attempt to preserve a family bond I thought would shatter if I ever said no. And now it had shattered, but it did so in a way that allowed me to survive. Christmas Day passed in silence. No message from Frank or Elaine, not a single line from Tyler. Ethan and I volunteered at the nearby homeless center, handing out breakfast to over 100 people. An old man held my hand gently and asked, "Sweetheart, do you have somewhere to go tonight?" I smiled and answered honestly, "I'm still learning what home really means." On the morning of December 26th, at 9:12 a.m., my inbox lit up with an email from Nicole Brooks, loan officer at Midstate Bank. "We've received Ms. Claire Morgan's request for removal from the mortgage loan. The request is being processed as a priority. The bank has issued a notice to the 2 primary borrowers, Frank and Elaine Morgan, requesting financial disclosures within 48 hours. I read it over and over. Every word felt like it was unlocking the invisible chains that had wrapped around me for years. Soon after, the first text came from my mother. "Claire, what's this bank situation? Call me now." I didn't respond. 30 minutes later, "What are you doing?" "Don't stir up trouble with the bank right now. They just called. I'm freaking out." Ethan glanced at my phone and shook his head. "They're playing the same card." I nodded. I knew. Silence was my strongest shield now. An hour later, Frank called. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. "Claire, this is all a misunderstanding. You're making a mess of things. We're busy finalizing cruise documents. Don't ruin it." Every 20 minutes, a message. Every hour, a voicemail. "This is going to damage your parents' credit." "Tyler can't sleep. He's worried sick about your mother." "You're doing something irreversible. Don't think you can quietly remove your name and wash your hands of this." Strangely, I felt unnervingly calm. I opened Google Sheets, created a document titled Event Manipulation Emotion. Every threat, every time they made me feel guilty, every tactic that masked debt with affection. A pattern emerged. Every time I succeeded, they created a crisis. Every time I set a boundary, they responded with collective pressure. By the end of the day, I got a call from an unknown number, a man's voice, low and courteous. "Ms. Morgan, this is Daniel Wallace, legal counsel for Mr. and Mrs. Frank and Elaine Morgan. I've been informed of developments regarding a mortgage matter that need clarification." I wasn't surprised. I didn't answer. I forwarded the voicemail to Jason Kim, attaching a note. "They've lawyered up." Jason called back almost immediately. "Don't worry, don't respond. The bank will handle it. Once the documents are processed, I'll send an official legal response to Daniel Wallace. Until then, stay silent, Claire." That night, I hugged my laptop beside a tree no one came to see, scrolling through photos from last Christmas, Me hugging my mom, Frank's hand on my shoulder, the whole family smiling under blinking lights. Then I looked at the Excel sheet where $65,130 sat quietly under total. Two contrasting images. One was an illusion, the other, reality. I closed them both, closed my eyes. I am no longer a high-yield investment, I whispered, the quietest yet strongest declaration I had ever made. Morning of December 27th, I woke before dawn. Ethan was still asleep. The soft green LED light from the Christmas tree continued to reflect quietly across the ceiling. I sat up, opened my laptop, and checked my inbox. Nicole Brooks had emailed at 6:43 a.m. Dear Ms. Morgan, your request to be removed from the mortgage on the property at 1842 Oakwood Lane has been successfully approved. The bank confirms you are no longer a co-signer. The primary borrowers have been notified. Sincerely, Nicole Brooks, Senior Loan Officer, Mid-State Bank. I sat still for a long time. No exhale, no tears, no smile. Just emptiness. Like standing in the middle of a battlefield after all the gunfire has stopped. I took my phone off silent mode. 68 missed calls. 37 from Frank, 22 from Elaine, 5 from Tyler, 4 from Daniel Wallace's number. I was no longer afraid of those numbers. I opened Word, drafted an email, this time not to apologize, not to explain, but to end a role that had been exploited. Subject, regarding the loan and our family relationship. 2. Frank Morgan, Elaine Morgan, Tyler Morgan, Daniel Wallace. CC, Jason Kim, my attorney. Dear Mom and Dad, I'm writing this email after receiving official confirmation from the bank. I am no longer a co-signer on the mortgage at Oakwood Lane. This decision does not come from anger, but from the need to protect myself after years of unhealthy financial entanglement. Over the past 6 years, I have loaned $65,130 with no reimbursement, co-signed 3 credit cards, carried legal liability for a $380,000 mortgage. In return, I received silence, anger whenever I asked questions, and more recently, a threat of legal action via voicemail. I've attached the voicemail from December 23rd left by Dad. Not to prove a point, only to prevent denial. I'm not writing this to reopen wounds. I'm writing to set boundaries. If we are to preserve any kind of relationship in the future, I ask for the following. No further financial requests of any kind. Acknowledgement that past financial behavior was harmful. Future contact only if both parties agree to participate in family therapy with a licensed professional. I will be going no contact for the next 30 days until January 27th, so that everyone has time to reflect. Any attempts to contact me beyond these boundaries will extend the period of no contact. Sincerely, Claire Morgan. I read it once more. Ethan stood by the kitchen door. He'd woken at some point, holding 2 mugs of coffee. Ready? He asked. I nodded, then hit send. That evening, we packed a few bags and left home earlier than planned. Ethan had already arranged for us to stay at his brother's house for a few days, just in case. My parents decided to drop by unannounced. Before leaving, I looked back at the house, the tree still glowing but no gifts underneath. We had donated most of them to a local charity the day before. I stuck a small note to the bathroom mirror. No one has the right to make you pay for love. 30 days began. No negotiation, no guilt, just silence for healing. January 27th, 9:54 a.m. Ethan and I sat in the car outside Riverside Cafe looking through the foggy window at the corner table where Frank and Elaine Morgan had arrived early. They sat across from each other in silence. No coffee on the table, no eye contact. Are you sure? Ethan asked one last time. I nodded. I'm not here to hear an apology. I'm here to speak the truth. We walked in. My mom looked up first. She offered a faint smile, dark circles under her eyes. My dad didn't look at me, just adjusted his collar, fingers clasped tightly. I pulled out a chair and sat down. Ethan sat beside me. His presence wasn't optional. It was the safety boundary I had chosen. Dad spoke first. "You've put us in a very difficult position." His voice still held that controlling tone. It wasn't an acknowledgement. It was an accusation. I said nothing, pulled a folder from my bag and placed it on the table. "I'm not here to argue. I'm here to present." Mom looked at the papers. "What is this?" 6 years of financial records, every transfer, every cosign, every promise unfulfilled, over $65,000 in total. I paused, then looked straight at Dad. "And this, voicemail from December 23rd, where you said Christmas was canceled, that your lawyer would be in touch." Dad flushed. "That was in anger. I didn't think I'd act on it, right?" I cut in gently. No one spoke, just the clinking of a spoon against a cup at the next table. I continued. "You no longer have to worry about my name on the mortgage. That's been handled. But if we're going to have any kind of relationship, it has to start with truth." Mom looked down. Dad kept his eyes up, but this time, they wavered. I turned to my mom. "Did you know Dad used the money I sent to book the Caribbean cruise?" Mom furrowed her brow. "He said it was from his year-end bonus." I stayed silent, looked directly at Dad. Elaine turned to Frank, whispering, "Frank? You used Claire's money? To pay for the trip?" He didn't respond, just looked away, lips tightly shut. That silence echoed like a detonation. Mom covered her mouth, eyes reddening. "Claire, I didn't know." "I know," I said. "I believe you truly didn't, but not knowing doesn't absolve the consequences." The entire table went quiet. "In this relationship," I said evenly, "I was the accomplished daughter you bragged about to outsiders, but the default wallet when the doors closed, the name you praised with pride, but also the one you pushed aside when it wasn't convenient." Dad inhaled sharply. "Claire, we just thought you could afford it. We're getting older. A trip, a TV, is that really so much?" "It's not too much if it came from your own money, but it was mine. Money meant for a wedding, for a life. I'm not asking for it back, but I won't continue." Mom dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. Dad remained silent. Ethan placed his hand on my knee. I knew it was time to end it. I didn't come here to apologize or to receive an apology. I came to set conditions. No more financial expectations of any kind. If there's to be any reconnection, it requires family therapy with a professional. All future interactions must come from respect, not guilt, not obligation. Dad opened his mouth as if to say something, then stopped. Mom gave a small nod. I understand. At least I'm starting to. I stood up. I need time. And I need to see action, not words. Ethan stood with me. We left the cafe and stepped into the biting but clear January air. There were no hugs, no promises, only one truth. If we were going to remain a family, we'd have to rebuild from zero. 2 days after the meeting at Riverside Cafe, Tyler called, for the first time since before Christmas. "Do you still have copies of Dad's loan documents?" I paused, midway through making tea. "I do. Why?" "Mom said you presented something at the cafe about the cruise, about money." I exhaled. "It wasn't a presentation, Tyler. It was the truth." There was silence on the other end for a few seconds. "Yesterday I went into Dad's office. There was an old file box. We thought it was insurance papers, but there were loan contracts, 2 home equity lines, and another loan from Uncle Greg." I sat down. "Uncle Greg?" "Yeah, $10,000, unpaid." I felt as though the chair beneath me had collapsed. I thought, "You were exaggerating." Then I saw last month's statement. They charged nearly $8,000 to the visa. There was an Apple Watch, plane tickets, a spa retreat in Santa Barbara. I heard Tyler swallow hard. Mom broke down when I asked, said, "I didn't know everything either." For the first time, Tyler's voice wasn't defensive, wasn't angry. It was just disillusioned. "Claire, I'm sorry, I didn't know it was this bad. It's okay, I said, softening. Now you know. That afternoon, an email arrived from Daniel Wallace, my parents' attorney. No more threats, no more pressure. Ms. Morgan, after reviewing the documents and further discussions with my clients, I'd like to inform you, your removal from the mortgage is legal and compliant with Oregon law. I have advised Mr. and Mrs. Morgan not to pursue legal action, as the chance of success is virtually non-existent. I also feel ethically obligated to disclose that early last year, they consulted me regarding the addition of your name to another secured asset without prior notice. I declined to proceed with that request, wishing you peace and hoping your family finds a new path forward. I reread the line. They consulted me regarding the addition of your name to another secured asset without prior notice. Adding my name to something I didn't know about, didn't consent to. This was no longer a breach of trust. This was the groundwork for fraud. I forwarded the email to Jason Kim and saved copies in 3 places: my laptop, my external drive, and the cloud. Not to sue, but to protect myself if they tried something else. That evening, Tyler called again, his voice deeper, calmer. Mom is going through everything. She's looking for a financial advisor. They said they're planning to sell the house. I leaned back in my chair. That is a necessary first step. I think so too. But Dad, he still hasn't admitted anything. Still says, Claire overreacted. It's okay. You don't need to push him. Everyone gets to their truth at their own pace. You're starting. Tyler was quiet, then softly, if you need an ally, this time I'm on your side. My chest tightened. We, siblings who once clashed over roles, over hierarchy, over skewed affection, were now looking in the same direction, not against our parents, but against a broken family system that had swallowed us in silence for years. The next morning, I received an email from Mom, for the first time not CC'd to Dad or any lawyer. Claire, I'm sorry I didn't see things more clearly. I thought I was holding the family together, but really I was hiding, from even myself. I told your father, I'm willing to attend family therapy, if you're still willing to give me a chance. Elaine. I read and reread every word. No tears, no begging. Just a door. Slightly open, and for the first time, I didn't want to slam it shut. The first week of February, I walked into the family therapy room at Cedar Pathways Counseling Center with my mother. No fresh flowers, no scented candles, no healing music. Just a softly gray-walled room, coarse fabric-covered sofas, and a small wooden table with a teapot on it. Dr. Julia Wong, the family therapist both my mother and I had agreed upon, welcomed us with a gentle smile and non-judgmental eyes. Today's session isn't meant to untangle everything in one go, she said. It's to begin relearning how to listen to each other as 2 adults with no debt owed. I sat by the window. My mother sat across from me. No makeup, no designer clothes. For the first time in a long while, I saw her as Elaine, not Mrs. Morgan. She spoke first, hesitant but sincere. You were right about everything you said, about the money, about asking for help and then assuming there was no need to repay. I thought it was love, but now I understand. It was a burden. I stayed silent. Dr. Wong nodded, gently turning her gaze to me. Claire, would you like to respond? I looked at my mother, then said, not with anger, not defensively, I don't need you to apologize. I need you to acknowledge this, that my saying no was not a betrayal. I didn't turn my back on the family. I turned my back on the kind of family you allowed it to become, manipulative, entitled, and pretending to be fine. My mother broke down in tears. This time, it wasn't tears to soften me. It was tears of realization. The session lasted an hour. It didn't end in a hug, but in a concrete plan. My mother would attend 3 individual therapy sessions in the coming month. She and I would continue family therapy every 2 weeks for the next 3 months. My father would not participate, and that choice was respected, not seen as a hindrance. On the way home, my mother shyly asked, "Next time, if you're okay with it, I'd like to invite Ethan. I want to understand him better." I smiled gently. "I'll ask him, but you need to know, we're a team." "I know. For the first time, I really do." In the following weeks, therapy didn't unfold like in the movies. No magical aha moments, no hugging in the rain. We talked, then were silent, then talked again. My mother shared about her youth, how she once had to take out a quick loan to pay for my piano lessons, hiding it from Dad. I shared about the time I was 28, standing in the rain downtown Portland, after receiving a call to help cover Tyler's tuition when I only had $73 in my bank account. We began to see each other, not as debtor and lender, not as mother and perfect daughter, but as two women, both cut down in voice and in their right to say no by the thing called sacrifice for the family. At the end of March, I invited my mother over for dinner, not to make peace, but to try again, on new terms. The house was still mine, the Christmas tree had been packed away, the financial summary spreadsheet was gone, but one note remained on the bathroom mirror: "No one has the right to make you pay for love." And now, I believed, my mother was learning to read it too, without defensiveness. April in Mapleton is rarely this beautiful. The air is just chilly enough to need a light jacket, yet sunny enough for cherry blossoms to burst open along the roads leading to Chestnut Street, where Ethan and I call home. On Saturday afternoon, Mom came over. No cookies, no demands, no last-minute texts like, "Just dropping by for a bit." She knocked, waited, was invited in. Ethan was brewing tea. Mom handed me a cloth tote. Inside was an old photo album, a few neatly clipped receipts, and a handwritten letter. I looked at her, said nothing. "This is how I want to begin again," she said, "if you'll still allow me that chance. As Elaine, not as a controller, not as a debtor, not as an all-powerful mother." I sat down and opened the first page of the album. Me, 3 years old, in a fuzzy blue dress, sucking on a popsicle, staring straight at Dad. Mom quietly said, "That was the first time you got to have ice cream without sharing with Tyler." I smiled, softly, very softly, but it was real. We had dinner, no tension, no dancing around unspoken things. Ethan asked Mom about her individual therapy sessions. She said she was learning how to be a mother, not as a job, but as a state of presence. I realized Mom was slowly becoming the person I used to dream of having, not through magical transformation, but through quiet, determined steps. "How's Dad?" I asked without dodging. She sighed. "Still not ready, but I can't wait forever for him to choose a different way to live." I nodded. I understand. And I did, deeply. The following week, I met Tyler again. For the first time, the three of us had lunch without the ghost of obligation hanging over our heads. Tyler talked about a personal finance class he was taking, about how he opened his first investment account and didn't ask me to co-sign. I want to be responsible on my own. If I mess up, at least it's my own mistake. I fell silent. That was the sentence I used to long to hear from Dad, and now it came from my younger brother. Maybe the cycle was being broken. On Mother's Day, I sent Mom a letter. No money, no fancy gifts. Inside was just a handwritten card. "I don't need you to be perfect. I just need you to be real. And if one day you fall, I can help catch you, but I won't carry it for you, because you were the first person who taught me how to get back up. Now you can learn that from me too. Claire." Mom texted back with the shortest message I've ever received from her. First time I read something without feeling guilty, just grateful. Thank you for not closing the door forever. In June, Ethan and I took a few days off in Lake Tahoe. No checking email, no returning calls, no worrying about a relative needing an emergency $2,000 transfer. I sat by the lake, the sunset casting red across the water, thinking about the definition of family, Something that once exhausted me, now being rewritten by my own hands. Family isn't immutable blood. Family is where boundaries are respected, where love doesn't mean blind sacrifice, where it's okay to pause and begin again if both sides are brave enough. I looked over at Ethan sitting a few steps away reading. He looked up, smiled, as if he'd read my thoughts. I smiled back. I didn't just reclaim my finances. I reclaimed my voice. I reclaimed the adulthood I gave up trying to play the perfect daughter. And for the first time, I believed I deserved a family, one I chose, one I built, from broken pieces into truth. I used to think, to save a sinking family, I had to dive in first. Now I understand, sometimes the only way to save the family is to swim to shore first. I don't know if my father and I will ever truly reconcile. But I do know this. I have reconciled with myself. I no longer use love to cover up pain, no longer use silence to preserve a family image that no longer exists. I, Claire Morgan, 33 years old, am no longer the bank daughter. I am an adult who has the right to say no, the right to cut contact, the right to return, if and only if it is healthy. And if you're reading this far, chances are you too carry a similar story, with parents, siblings, or relatives who once made love feel like a burden. If there's one thing I hope you hold on to, it's this. You are not selfish for setting boundaries. You are brave. Believe that you have the right to pause, step away, heal, and rebuild family, whether by blood or with those you choose to trust. If this story speaks to you in any way, leave a line below. It doesn't have to be long. It just has to be real. Because sometimes sharing is the first step to resurrection. And if you are on that journey, I'm walking with you, one step at a time. Claire.